So, welcome to my little printmaking world here. And what we're going to do today is show you how to make a copy of the etching that I'm working on for the Print Club of Albany. It's called From East Buchanan. And you can see right now the image that is the BAT, or bon à tirer, I think is how you say it, which means basically good to pull. This is the print that will be my watermark for the prints as I make them. And so I've printed about 60 of 110 prints so far that need to get printed. We just made a print and go through the process of inking and wiping and printing. I only recently learned you don't need to put terps down to pick up the ink. You just wipe it. If you're using plexiglass as we do here, it should come right up. One less toxic step for mankind. Okay, so we're going to start by squeegeeing some ink into the lines that have been etched into the plate. Of course, the etching of the plate is a whole different process. We're not going to discuss that here right now. But this is the second part of the process, which is the printing. After you've etched your plate. What I'm doing is a little thing I've learned for myself, which seems to work, which is I start at the very parameter of the print to make sure the ink gets into the lines that are all the way on the border, because I've learned it's a good way to make a bad print is to exclude the edges while you're printing. So that's the first thing I do now when I start wiping. The ink is warm enough. It's cold out here, but the ink had been in the house, so it's a little warmer than it had been had I had left it out here in the cold when the heat is off. The sounds you hear are coming from my assistant Albert. Okay. Okay, so the idea is to get as much ink off the surface of the plate as you can, because it's going to do two things. One, you can reuse it, and two, it can make it much quicker and easier to wipe your plate. It's been squeegeed on. The ink has been squeegeed. I'm taking a very dirty tarlatan with a lot of ink and a big ball of it so you don't go too far into the lines. You don't want to remove the ink from the lines, only from the surface of the plate. Slowly, as you do this, you begin to see the image begin to materialize. You'll see some etchers, printmakers over the years. Degas did it. Rembrandt did it. He'll leave them at different states and then selectively wipe, like this, for instance, and then wipe into it and pull out details. Looking for a cleaner area to start picking up more ink. After this print, I've got to go in and get some more tarlatan because we're we're gradually filling up the tarlatans. The light one becomes dark, the dark one becomes unusable, and you need a new very light one for your final wipe, which we're coming up to in a minute. Okay. And this is about the cleanest I have out here right now. This tarlatan is too soft, I don't like it, so I'm not going to use it. There's some tarlatan. Well, I think we can get by with this stuff for one more print. Now you can begin to see the silver of the steel that has been deposited on the copper etching plate to protect it. You can see the silver, wherever it's light, wherever you see that silver, that's going to print white. That's your white areas. You can really see the image here, although it's in reverse from what the print will look like. Maybe one more, if I can find a nice clean area. Okay. Now I'm going to take a piece of newsprint and start wiping out the areas that I want to be the lightest, where I don't want ink. You have to be very careful with newsprint because it will really remove, for instance, if you should never wipe a dry point with newsprint because it will really remove the ink so much. To be real careful. Areas that you want to print really dark, obviously don't use the newsprint on. Okay, and I need one more for the sky. That should be good. Okay. Okay. All right, so now what I'm going to do is take a paper towel and you have to be sure to catch all the ink that may have come and been grabbed at the edge of the beveled plate, because if you don't and you print it, you'll get a big glob of ink, and it has ruined many a print. Doesn't really ruin the print, but it ruins the possibility of selling it, or diminishes it. You can never do too much of that, so it's good to make sure you've gotten it all. Okay, so that's it. It's ready to be printed. I've marked off where the plate goes, and I've marked off where the paper goes. Okay. Because the bed is cold right now, the prints will be a little bit clean. In other words, there won't be much surface ink. The surface ink is regulated to some degree by the temperature of the ink in the plate. And the colder it is, the less active the ink becomes. And that then cuts down on its strength, really. Okay, I'm going to take a piece of paper. This is Hana Mule copper plate paper. Some printmakers don't soak the paper, but just spray it, and put it in plastic and let it sit for a while. That's how I learned to do it, so this is how I do it. What I do is I run it through and then I shift it in case there are any wet spots that aren't absorbing, because the worst mistake that we make when we make prints is to have the paper too wet. It's almost impossible to make it too dry. Making sure that, oh, there's my watermark. That looks like the side. What I want is the front, the watermark. Okay, I'm running it through now, obviously, through the press. Okay, and now the magic moment. Looks like a pretty good rich print of the image. So I have to do this 110 times for this particular edition, and we're past the halfway point at this point. What I will do with this as I print them is I put them into a little pile of blotters here for about a half hour until I have about 5, and then I take them inside and dry them under pressure. And then I'll come out and do another 5, etc., etc. It goes on like that.